Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Visubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Adi Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, gaining freedom from anxiety. Who here experiences anxiety? So, some people are experiencing anxiety. Who here has an issue with stress or feels overly stressed and it's causing a challenge in their life? Unhappiness. So I recently came from India. I spent quite a lot of time in India, mostly in Mayapur, West Bengal. But I had the opportunity to travel with two other monks to IIT Kharagpur. I'm sure most of you have heard of that, famous college there. And what I learned was astonishing. I learned that in one semester there were 6 suicides. 6 suicides in one semester at this one college in India. Of course, it's a very prestigious college, but still, if 6 suicides, it seems like it's not worth it. So this is because of anxiety and stress and pressure, and so people are feeling they just can't go on with the world. And so mental health and anxiety and stress and unhappiness, this is a very big problem in the world. Huge problem for every living entity, but the human beings are stressing out more than even the animals. The animals go to bed on time. You see, right? All the birds, they go to sleep on time, they wake up on time. They don't seem like they're stressing over food so much. But the humans, they are very, very much stressed out. So this is a big challenge that we're facing in our society today. And I want to start this by making this point that if you want to become happy, who here wants to be happy? I want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. If you want to become happy, if you want to have a nice life, you have to embrace the wholeness of your being. This means we have to embrace the fact that we are spiritual. We're not just this body. Bhagavad Gita, the very first thing Krishna says is that you're not this body. Never was there a time when you didn't exist. Never will there be a time when you cease to be. Because you're a soul and you're eternal. And so we have a body and we have to take care of it. We need to eat, we need shelter, we need friends, we need partners, we need all these things. But if we just embrace the body, then we're leaving out the majority of who we are. We're leaving out the spiritual element, because we are actually a soul. That's who we are innately. Who were you before you were born? Who will you be after you die? So you are innately a spiritual personality, you're a spiritual being. And so unless we embrace the fullness of our existence, we can't be happy. So we have to embrace the fullness of our being in order to overcome these problems. Otherwise, human society, and we see that today, as human society becomes less and less God conscious, as people turn away from religion and God in all shapes and forms. In this country, I was raised in this country, and I remember when I was a child, everybody went to church. And people were a lot more pious, they had a lot more punya. And people were happier. And now I'm seeing so many people that are turning away from God and they're becoming very miserable. And so this is happening all over the world because people are forgetting who they really are. They're not embracing that spiritual element of who they are. And so the result of that is anxiety. So in order to understand and defeat this problem, which is a serious problem, and I'm assuming so many of you are probably engineering students or students of sciences, computer science. So you have a mind that can tackle problems, assuming you've done math. So we solve problems. So let's solve this problem of anxiety, shall we? We should solve this problem. Because even if you make all the money, you get the degree, you have the job, you stay in America, no one is happy. No one is happy here in America anyway, so unless you can beat this problem of anxiety, you can't be happy. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter, he says, if you can't be peaceful, there's no possibility of happiness. So first we have to find some peace. So if there's anxiousness and stress, then this is a challenge in our lives. And if we don't deal with it, then it'll continue. And a life wasted, huh? Never feeling any peace. So in order to defeat anxiety, first we should understand what is anxiety. So I'm open to suggestions. Someone can describe anxiety to me, please. Don't be shy.
When we become short to achieve something or become something.
Say that louder.
When we fall short in becoming something or achieving something,
So-
that's when the goal
So
is
when we fall short, that causes anxiety. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
When you're working on a particular deadline or particular part of the life.
Overthinking, yeah, that's a symptom of anxiety for sure. Anything else? Yes.
Uncertainty about the future.
Anxiety about the future.
Uncertainty.
Oh, uncertainty. Yes, that's a very important one. One more. We'll take one more if anybody has. Yes, sir.
Worrying about something we can't actually control or even like plan to control.
Worrying about something we can't control. Yes. So at its root, we should understand this. At its root, and I'm not making this up. This is a scientific definition. At its root, anxiety is fear. It is fear. And she said it very nicely, worrying about our future, being uncertain about our future. So there are two types of fear. If you analyze fear, and we're making an analysis, a scientific analysis, because this is a spiritual science. If you do Bhakti Yoga, it'll solve all your problems because it's a science, and it's the most ancient science, and it's the science that includes the soul. So there are two types of fear. One of the biggest types of fear is fear of the unknown. People are very scared of the unknown. They're scared of what they don't understand. And that leads us all the way up to death. People are very scared of death because they don't know what happens after death. They're not sure. Some of us are, but many, many aren't. And another fear is fear of pain and fear of discomfort. Some people say, especially like devotees and monks, say, "Oh, I don't fear death, but I fear the pain of dying. I don't want to go through that pain, that misery." So people fear these things basically, and that ultimately is the root cause of all anxieties, is fear of the unknown and fear of unnecessary suffering. Would you agree? Okay. So there are two solutions to these. One of them is knowledge, and the other one is detachment. Knowledge and detachment. Jnana, vairagya. This is the solution to fear and anxiety. Both types of fear. Fear of the unknown is cured by knowledge. Fear of pain and discomfort is cured by detachment, vairagya. So if you can simply develop these two qualities, somehow or another, jnana and vairagya, detachment and knowledge, then you can overcome anxiety and fear very easily. And with that, all the other challenges that come. And that alone will give you so much peace in your heart, then all kinds of happiness and blessings and auspiciousness will come upon you. So sometimes people are very scared of this word detachment, this vairagya, this tyag. Very, very scared of it. Because people think, oh, I have to leave my family, oh, I have to become a sadhu, I have to go to the Himalayas. This is a misconception. And jnana, people don't generally understand what that is. What is real jnana? But we can take from Krishna, from the authority of the Vedas. Krishna says, Vaidashta Sharviro Hameva Vedyo, Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham. Says this in the 15th chapter, 15th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains that out of all the Vedas, all the scriptures, he's the goal. He's to be known. So if you study all the scriptures, including even Western scriptures, whatever you're studying, the goal is to know Krishna. That's the goal. And so he also says, I am the compiler of the Vedas, Vedanta Vid. I'm the knower of the Vedas and I'm the compiler of the Vedas. And I'm the end of all knowledge. So, understanding Krishna, we can understand what is real knowledge and how to develop detachment. So, we said jnana and vairagya, knowledge and detachment. But we should understand that these are not necessarily separate. They're one and the same. Actually, they're concomitant. They're connected to each other. Knowledge, or jnana, leads to vairagya. Knowledge leads to detachment. And I'll give you an example. So everybody here has probably had pudding, sweet rice, kheer, right? So if I made some nice pudding, it looks very nice, nice rice, saffron in it, very, very nice pudding. And I offer it to Prabhu here. And I tell him, oh, actually, Prabhu, I put salt in it instead of sugar. Then all of a sudden it's not attractive anymore, right? Correct? It looked very nice. It looked very good. I wanted it. But now that I realized, oh, he put salt in it, I don't want it anymore. So once he had knowledge of what it actually is, immediately he became detached. You see? So if you can develop knowledge of something, you can become detached. So therefore, we want to develop ultimate knowledge, and by developing ultimate knowledge, you can develop ultimate detachment, which looks very different from what you may think. So in developing this ultimate knowledge, we should understand what is real knowledge. And so this is basically explained in Bhagavad Gita. First is, what is the Supreme? What is the Supreme? Yes, we'll get there. Yeah, absolutely. What is Supreme? What is the highest truth? What is the absolute truth? What is God? What is the Supreme? What is that? We should understand that. What am I? People don't know who they are. They think, oh, I'm an American, I'm an Indian, I'm a student at the ASU. These are all called upadhis. These are false designations. They don't know who they are. If you ask someone who they are, generally they start describing their job, they start describing the family they come from, they start describing the country they're from. But they don't genuinely know who they are, because all those things can change. So people don't know who they are. So we have to know what is God and what are we, and what is that relationship. This is what constitutes real knowledge. And this is what will develop real detachment. So these are called, first is called sambandha gyan, means knowledge of what is my relationship with the Supreme. And then abhideya gyan, how do I act in that relationship? And prayojana, what is the goal of that relationship? So these three elements, and actually this can apply to anything. This can apply to even a friendship. If I meet this person here, first I establish a relationship. Who are you? Oh, I'm so-and-so. And then now we begin to act in that relationship, and then we have a goal of that relationship. Like if I want to do business with someone, oh, this person seems like a nice person to do business with. I meet them. Now we've established a relationship. We determine certain parameters in which we're going to act in that relationship. We begin acting in that relationship. And from those parameters, if we cooperate, then we cooperate in business and we achieve a goal. So this applies in every sphere of life, but especially this applies with Bhagavan, the Supreme Absolute Truth. It applies with the living entity, the jiva, that's you and me, and it applies in that relationship. So we should establish this. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, and everybody has this existential crisis. Who here knows this kind of word, existential crisis? Who's here heard of that word? People have an existential crisis, especially college students. I know when I was in college, I had a big existential crisis, like what the heck is going on? What am I? So what is this existence? Why do I even exist? And so Krishna answers this very concisely in the Bhagavad Gita. He says beautifully, he says, Mamaivam jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manastastasht indriyani prakriti stani karshati. This is the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 7th verse, he says, Mamaivam jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. And all the living entities in this material world, all the living entities, that includes the plants, the grass, the bugs, the beasts, you and me, all the living entities in this material world are Mamai Amsha. They're my eternal fragmental part. You are a part of that Supreme Personality. But you're struggling. Manastastash Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. You're struggling very hard with the Indriyas, the 6 senses, which include the mind. The 6 senses including the mind. So we struggle with our senses and the mind. Who here struggles with their mind? The mind wants this, the mind wants that. The mind is the big challenge most of the time, huh? You're all young. Mind is the challenge, not the body. Body most of the time works. Mind is always causing so much misery. So we're struggling with the mind. And then the senses. The senses see this. Oh, she's so beautiful. Oh, he's so beautiful. Oh, I want this. Oh, I want that. I want so much. And the mind is making all these fantasies. In this way, the living entity is really suffering, starts to very much struggle. So Krishna describes this. But you are part and parcel of Krishna. And so Krishna, God, who has unlimited names, he's described to have 3 qualities, 3 very important primary qualities. He's eternal, he's Sat, he's full of knowledge, Chit, and he's full of bliss, Ananda. And so if you are also part and parcel of that supreme reality, if you are a part of that supreme reality, that means that you also are eternal, you're also full of knowledge, and you're also full of bliss. So if you don't feel on a regular basis eternal, if you don't feel like you're full of knowledge, you don't feel blissful, totally blissed out, then you're not functioning properly. Just like, we have a sickness. Oh, like I have a fever, I can't walk. This is a symptom that I'm not functioning properly. My body's not functioning properly. So as a being, as a whole living entity, if you don't experience Sat, eternality, which if you know yourself to be eternal, that kind of cuts out that fear element. If you don't feel yourself full of self-awareness, full of knowledge as to what things really are in this world, and full of ecstasy, full of bliss, if we don't feel happy, we're not functioning. And so as part and parcel of this supreme living entity, it is your right, it is your birthright, it is your very existence. You don't have to do anything to achieve it. You deserve, by just being who you are, to feel happy. So there's a very serious problem we're experiencing in this world by this anxiety, by this stress, by all these challenges. So the majority of the living entities in this time, place, and circumstance are broken. We're not functioning because we're not on that level. But we can come to that level very easily. So because you're part of this supreme, you also deserve to feel this. And when the living entity, this example is given, when the living entity is part of this supreme being, as we've been discussing. It's like fire. Fire has sparks. Who's seen fire? They've seen sparks. So you see the sparks flying in them. When the spark goes away from the fire, the spark goes out, correct? So that spark, when it's in the fire, it is just like the fire. It's glowing, it's hot, it can start a fire. But after it falls away from the fire, it loses its potency. So the living entities in this world, by our free will, we've chosen to turn away from that supreme source and engage in selfish endeavors. And rather we've made our relationship with this world and with the things of this world, and therefore always anxiety. But when the living entity realizes, hey, my vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, I'm part and parcel of this supreme living entity, and I have a relationship, and I am happy. I'm happy. That's who I am by nature. I am eternal. I have nothing to fear. When the living entity realizes this, then everything changes. He begins to act in that capacity. So I think it's pretty fundamental amongst most people, especially from India. They can at least intellectually understand that I'm not this body, right? Who here believes they have a soul? Please raise your hand. You're wrong. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You are a soul and you have a body. You see how we just simply identified with the body? How easy it is to say, oh, I have a soul. Who are you? Who has this soul? Rather, you are the soul who has the body. And this is the problem. This simple misunderstanding is the source of all of our miseries. And so if you can understand that you're not this body, you're the soul. Step 1. What is step 2? If you take anything from me tonight, just take this. You can understand you're not this body. Step 1. Step 2. Okay, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. Now, what does it mean to be a soul? People don't know that. They know I'm not this body, but they don't know what that means because they don't know what I actually am. So Krishna tells us the soul is part and parcel of me, and therefore the soul has a relationship with me. And when the soul acts in that capacity, this is called Krishna consciousness, this is called Bhakti Yoga. When the soul acts in that capacity, all of a sudden the living entity reawakens to his constitutional position and he becomes fully joyful. He becomes eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. He becomes awakened to that reality. So, therefore, this is Abhideya Gyan. This is how we act in that. And the best way to act in that is to chant Hare Krishna. If you can chant Hare Krishna, it immediately takes you to the spiritual platform. Immediately puts you on the spiritual platform. This chanting kirtan, immediately go onto the spiritual platform. And then what is the goal? What is the prayojana? All of the ignorance in our hearts is removed, and we become fully joyful, fully happy, free from anxiety and stress. So this is all very philosophical, and I'm sure you appreciate it very much, but let's get practical. Let's get practical. How do we apply this philosophy, take it into real life, so that when you leave here tonight, you can do something that is going to help you remove this very difficult and ugly challenge we're all facing. So I want to make the point here that our goals determine everything in life. If you don't have a goal, then you're not going anywhere. George Harrison said once that any road will take you there if you don't have a goal. No destination, any road will take you there. So we have to have some goals. So most of us, I'm sure, being that you're all college students here in the United States of America, you have some goals. At least I'm going to get my degree. Probably I'm going to get a job. Likely I'm going to start a family, these types of goals. So you all have goals. And then you have long-term goals, you have short-term goals. So your short-term goals, let me pass my final, let me pass this test, let me do this, assuming this is all correct. So our goals determine everything. And so anxiety comes when our goals are not met, correct? When we feel like I'm not going to achieve my goal, like this nice lady said, I'm not going to achieve my goal, and so now I have anxiety. I'm not going to make as much money as I want, I have anxiety. I'm not going to be able to do the things I want to do, I have anxiety. I'm unable to live up to the standards of my parents or my family, I have anxiety. So if these are our goals, if our goal is based in this world, if our main goal in life is based in this world, we will always experience anxiety, no matter what. That is a fact, unavoidable fact. Not saying we don't have goals in this world, but if that remains our main focus in life, we will always be in misery. Krishna says, Yehi samsparsha jaboga dukkha yoniya evate. He says that this pleasure of the senses includes all the subtle senses like getting money and these types of things. These types of pleasures is dukkha yoniya evate. This is the womb of misery. So if your goal is based in this world, you'll always have anxiety. You can never feel peace. And even if you really analyze, the world, there's very little material success. Like growing up once, I'm from a very small town in Arizona, and in this country, in this state, people take their sports very seriously, especially their American football. Just like in India, they take cricket very seriously. So especially in these kind of small town cultures, where I grew up, people take their sports very seriously. And one day we had a guest speaker come to our school, and he asked all the students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And every single student, practically every student, I didn't, but so many students, hundreds of students, you know what they said? They want to be a football player. How many of them became football players? Not even one. Not one became a football player. Some of them worked so hard, but not one ever played for the NFL. So when I was young, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a very famous musician. And there were many other kids, that I grew up with and that also wanted that. How many became famous musicians? Not even one. So there's very little material success in this world. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from achieving material goals. We should try for them if they're part of our lives. But we should understand that in the material world, success is very rare. And even if one achieves success, most of the time that success is not satisfying. For instance, we have our, so many billionaires in this country. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, he got a divorce. He had to pay, billions and billions and billions of dollars to his ex-wife in this divorce. So it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're at a divorce, you're never happy. Divorce is a very miserable and horrible kind of thing to go through. It's a very sad thing to go through. It's never fun. Yet he's so successful materially. So these material goals are challenging. And say we don't succeed. We don't succeed. First off, that causes anxiety because I'm in the process of not succeeding. I'm anxious. I feel like I'm not good enough. So first thing, it leads to shame, and it leads to vice. Everybody knows what vice is. It leads to trying to enjoy our senses. I'm so miserable. I'm not doing so. I need to drink. Let me go. Talk to the various members of the opposite sex. Let me go. Scroll on my phone. Let me do some type of thing to get away from this challenge because I'm not successful. I don't feel worthy, and therefore vice leads to shame. Shame leads to guilt. Guilt leads to more anxiety, and ultimately leads to sickness in the body. So there's so many things that come from this. So, yes, we have material goals, but we need to have a spiritual goal. So it's very important that we create a spiritual goal in life. So I want to focus on one verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I think Sham Gopal Prabhu said we can put it up on the screen. That's all right. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita 18, I believe it's 58. And we'll read it together. Yeah, Machchita. Okay, we'll read it together. Machchita sarva durgani
Machchita sarva durgani
mat prasada tarishyasi ata chetvam ahankaran na shroshyasi vinakshasi. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is saying, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. I'll read Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is why I chose this verse, this very nice line. Srila Prabhupada says, a person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort, and he gives himself to his friend, who is so devotedly engaged, working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily concept of life. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of material nature or free to act. He is already under strict material laws, but as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. So we're running low on time, so I'll just briefly break this verse down. Krishna is explaining, if you become conscious of me, meaning if you become God conscious, if you take this process, if you start chanting Hare Krishna, you'll pass over all of the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So this is the point here, is that ahankara, this false ego, means that I'm thinking that I'm so-and-so, I'm Chris Casillas, and I want to be an engineer, I want to be a this, and I have all these goals. This is all a dream, because this is not who we are, and after death, all these things cease to be. And so we're acting on a false pretense. And as long as we act on a false pretense, we're totally lost. It's amnesia. And therefore, we're always in anxiety. But when you realize that I am part and parcel of God, and that my genuine existence and relationship is with God, and my true goal in life should be Krishna. And when we act in that capacity, not that these material things cease completely, but at the end of the day, our goal is that we came closer to Krishna, then you'll always feel peaceful. And I was speaking to someone just the other day, and I said, every single day, no matter how bad it gets, or how many weird things happen, I always feel happy at the end of the day, because the goal of each day is not that I achieved so many things, that I passed the test, that I did this or that. The goal of each day is that I came closer to Krishna. And therefore I'm always peaceful. Because that coming closer to Krishna is not dependent on anything in this world. I chant Hare Krishna, I associate with wonderful devotees of the Lord, take blessed prasadam. And if I did those things, I came closer to Krishna, and therefore I'm peaceful. Although everything could have went wrong materially. So, therefore, you have so many things you're maybe anxious about. Do them. Krishna explains we should do them with a sense of detachment, because ultimately they're not the goal of life. If they're your goal, if you make them the all in all, then all of the karma associated with those things has to befall you. And so, how many companies we work for, even this institution, just to say, how many, in these halls, how many things that have happened that are probably bad karma, right? I don't have to go into them, but just, some of these restaurants, so many things, bad karma happening. And so when we identify, I'm an ASU, we're taking some of that on, but when we say, no, I'm part and parcel of Krishna, and this ASU, and this degree, and this college, this is simply paraphernalia or a tool in which I can use to achieve my ultimate goal. I got to make sure this body's okay. I need to deal with the needs of it. I need to live nicely. There's nothing wrong with having a comfortable, nice life. I have a nice life. I have a pretty comfortable life. There's nothing wrong with that. But when that becomes the goal of life, you'll always be anxious. You'll always be unhappy. And so Krishna, in the most famous and final verse of Bhagavad Gita, he says, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. So he says, Sarva dharman parityaja, abandon all these dharmas. It means the ASU dharma, the cricket dharma, the engineer dharma, the IT dharma. Doesn't mean you abandon them completely or you don't do them, but he says especially he qualifies that with this word, mam ekam, make me number one. Make Krishna number one in your life. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Surrender unto me. And he says, I will relieve you from all the bad karma. Do not fear. And we already going back, what is anxiety, ultimately the cause of anxiety? Fear, no? So do not fear. Because you know who you are. And ultimately, if you do this, if you chant Hare Krishna, and you live in such a way, even if everything goes wrong at the end of life, you don't take birth again. You go back to the spiritual world. So this is a win-win situation. So I encourage all of you to, go about with your college lives and do your material activities as nicely as possible. But if things don't work out, if you have challenges, remember that this is not the goal. And that these challenges simply are going to help you if you make Krishna the goal of your life. These challenges will help you come closer to Him. And you can always feel peaceful and free from anxiety. And we say, focus on the work, not the goal, not the result or the fruit of that work. You know, you're working to be an engineer, focus on that. But if things don't work out, no big deal. But I'm offering that moment to Krishna, and then you'll feel peaceful and happy. So, is there any questions or comments? Please. It's important to ask questions. If you ask questions in a spiritual sangha, you actually get a lot of blessings from God, and you make progress, and you find actual happiness in asking good questions. So please ask questions. Yes, Venkat always has a good question.
Thank
You
you.
always count on that.
Thank you very much for giving a nice talk in short time. Can you please explain more about how to be Krishna consciousness practically?
Yeah. So, yeah, very nice, very important point. So, first thing we already did, we chanted Hare Krishna. And just chanting puts you on the spiritual platform, and I'll explain why. So if I call out Venkat, of course Venkat's a name of Krishna, so it assume it's not. If I call out your name, I'm calling to you Venkat. And we have a relationship. You're, from India, I'm from America. We have this, and then in our next life, we could be completely different. I can be a frog and you can be a demigod. So this is a relative relationship. And so basically all the things we're speaking about in this world, they're all relative. And so they put me relative. When I'm speaking on that platform, I'm being relative to you. But when I call out to Krishna, now because that's who I really am, I'm part of Krishna, and at my most fundamental level of being, I am in a relationship with Krishna. At the most fundamental level of who I am, when I call out to Krishna, all of the lower spheres of consciousness cease, and I'm functioning on that sphere of consciousness, which is I have a relationship with Krishna, with the Supreme Being. And so when we chant Hare Krishna in Kirtan, especially when we chant on our beads and we engage ourselves and we meditate and we stay on that platform, that sphere of consciousness, then in time we begin to carry it through our day, and we'll always remember ourselves as part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore we become Krishna conscious. Another very practical element is who do we associate with? And you all have goals. We're speaking of goals, correct? That's what we were speaking about, and how the goals basically determine our anxiety. So if your goal is to become an engineer, you probably go to the ASU School of Engineering, and you associate with engineers, correct? If your goal is to be a doctor, you probably go to the ASU Medical School, and you associate with doctors. And if your goal is to become Krishna conscious, if your goal is to be an enlightened soul, you need to associate with devotees of the Lord. It doesn't mean you don't associate, do your job and go to your classes. But we need to have spiritually uplifting association. That spiritually uplifting association will teach us how to become living like a spirit soul. That's very practical, important element. If we don't associate, then we're going to be subjected to something. We can always change the subject. We can always change the channel in our lives. It's important to remember that we subject ourselves to things. I'm subjecting myself to the news or to this book or that TV program or this person. So if we don't have a consciousness, then we're just being subjected to whatever's being thrown at us. We're kind of in the ocean, floating around, lost. But now once I realize, no, I can change the subject of my life. I want to hear about these spiritual topics. I want to associate with spiritual people. I want to eat spiritual food. Then all of a sudden, the subject of our life changes. We change the channel. We become a transformed personality immediately, just like that. So association, chanting, those are the two most important practical elements. Avoiding those things which are detrimental to Krishna consciousness. Things like illicit sex, eating a carnivorous diet, gambling, intoxication, alcohol, marijuana, these things lower our consciousness and they put us on the material platform. But in any case, these most important elements, these things are hard to give up, especially for Westerners in the beginning. But if you chant Hare Krishna and you associate with devotees without self-judgment, just realize I am still, no matter how fallen or weird or bad I feel, no matter what, I'm still this beautiful part and parcel of Krishna. If I live in that consciousness, then and I associate with devotees, then I'll purify myself and I'll come to the higher level. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you.
You next. You first.
Oh, okay. So thank you for the wonderful class.
Please speak loud.
Oh, thank you for the wonderful class. And so I was one question that came up was for devotees that are just starting Bhakti Yoga and everything, they could be reading through Bhagavad Gita and everything, and they hear that this world is just dukkhalayam shashvatam.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be here. We're gonna die. We're gonna go to hell and everything. But then, so they might see the world as there's no point of me being in here, and if I'm going to do something for my life, I might as well just give it up to Krishna. But at the same time, that's also taking something in. That's like using bhakti as a scapegoat to get rid of your own dharma. And in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says it's like better to do your own dharma imperfectly than to do someone else's dharma more perfectly. And so how do we understand this?
Well, it's a very well thought out and beautiful question. I'm impressed with your question. It's a very nice question. What he's asking is that one of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he explains that the world is dukkhalayam shashvatam. It's temporary and full of misery. Uh-oh. That's not good. We understand that the world is temporary. Nothing lasts forever here. All things must pass. And full of misery. Well, no, I have some fun sometimes. But ultimately, it's all sandwiched in between the misery of birth and the misery of death. And all the sickness and all the people you love also dying. There's so much misery. And so this is kind of one of those heavy statements Krishna makes where, maybe because I understand this, I should just render service to Krishna. In fact, Krishna says, having come to this temporary, miserable world, engage in loving devotional service unto me. So yes, and you've understood that, so let me now engage and give my life to God. Yet Krishna's saying, you're saying that sometimes we use this as a way to escape our own dharma. And this is what Arjuna was trying to do, no?
Yeah.
Yet his dharma was to fight. So I want to explain this in a very philosophical way, that our acharyas explain, the great commentators on Bhagavad Gita explain that Bhakti Yoga in a sense has a certain qualification. At whatever level you're at, you can chant Hare Krishna. This is the first stage of Bhakti. Bhakti is 9 steps. There's 9 stages of Bhakti, 9 processes. The first process is Shravanam, hearing, like you're doing now. The first process is come and hear a lecture about Krishna, Shravanam. Second process is Kirtanam, talk about Krishna and chant Hare Krishna. These are the 2 processes, and they are sufficient in themselves to give one all perfection. But the last process is called Atmanivedanam, means full self-surrender. Not everybody's qualified to just, give up everything and surrender to Krishna right away, because we have desires. Who here has desires? No? Yeah, we have things, and because we're influenced by karma and by the modes of nature, we're being pushed to fulfill these things, to do these things. And so, rather than avoid doing those things, rather than just trying to give up, like Arjuna wanted to give up fighting, although his dharma was to fight. He wanted to give up fighting. Krishna says, no, you have to fight. And this is what they call karma yoga, especially nishkam karma yoga, meaning that let me do what I want to do, but let me do it for Krishna. So Krishna says, yat kurosi, yat ashnasi, yat jahosi, tadasi, yat tapasyasi konteya, tat kurosamanarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever charity you do, whatever austerities you perform, do that for me. So a karma yogi, he's attached to work. He's attached to a particular type of work. I want to be an engineer. I got to be a fighter. Like Arjuna, he needed to fight. He wasn't qualified to walk into the forest and chant Hare Krishna yet. So if we do our work, yet we offer it to Krishna, that will purify us of that karma, so that at a certain point we can fully give ourselves to Krishna. You see, this is called Karma Mishra Bhakti. It's the beginning stage. And so Prabhupada translates this word karma yoga to devotional service also, because it's just a lower stage. So if we're not ready to do a certain thing, we do our work and we offer it to Krishna. As long as that work is not sinful, you can't, go out and sell drugs for Krishna. It doesn't work that way. And you do general, normal work, whatever we need. If I feel like I'm a brahmachari. I had this propensity. Someone may have the propensity to be married. Okay, well then, be married, and have children, make them devotees. So you're somewhat attached to being married. I'm attached, I want this, but I'm going to use it, I'm going to offer it to Krishna. So that's the lower stage. The higher stage is I'm no longer attached to the work. I'm attached to what Krishna wants. I'm attached to what does Krishna want for me. And so Arjuna transcended that in the Bhagavad Gita when Krishna said, I want you to fight. I want you to fight. And so you're fighting for me, not fighting because that's your dharma, not fighting because of this or that, but fight for me. And in any case, even if one does try to give it all to Krishna, but they're not ready, there's no loss. Narada Muni says, Tvaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harir bhajana pakvo tapatit tatu yari yatra kavaba dharmabura musyakim kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. Narada Muni explains that even if one is tvaktva swadharma, even if he lets go of his dharma to engage in the service of God, yet he falls down, he struggles, there's no loss. But if you do your dharma perfectly in this world, but you don't develop attachment for Krishna, there's no gain. So we shouldn't use bhakti yoga as a way of avoiding our duties. That's what Arjuna was trying to say. We should do our duties and at the same time chant Hare Krishna. And there's another example of this. I'll ask one more question and we'll end. One example is Lord Chaitanya, as he was going through South India, one Brahmin he stayed with during the rainy season, during Chaturmas. And they had beautiful conversations and chanting together and kirtan together. It was such an ecstatic time for this Brahmin. He's sitting with the Supreme Lord. And then Lord Chaitanya was leaving after the rainy season concluded. And the Brahmin wanted to follow him. He said, no, you can't, I'm sannyas, you stay grihasta, but chant Hare Krishna. Stay and do your thing. So it's not so much of action, because Krishna explains, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmaram nidija maya prita manabhuhir mam eva shashi samsayaha. Perform your prescribed duty, in this case of fighting, but whatever your prescribed duty is, perform that prescribed duty well, at the same time remembering me in the form of Krishna. With your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will come to me. So in that way, just chant Hare Krishna and do what you have to do. There's one more little question I can answer it briefly.
Is it okay if we take the questions privately?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Please give him a round of applause.
Hare Krishna.